This is an update on my previous video on my food forest. Now, I think it's important that you show failures as well as successes. And first off, I'll show you what's going on at the moment, and then I'll tell you what the failure was. So this was originally planted out with lots of fruit trees. I had a system of funneling water from the road that came for 100 meters through a channel from the road to water it. There were terraces in here to hold water and collect water. And in the previous one, I showed you how every year I got different weeds and things, but things were going okay. Well, the issue that we have here in this part of Australia is the place varies from droughts to floods. So our typical rainfall varies from about 350 millimeters a year, which is just over a foot, to about 1400 millimeters a year when we have a La Nina. So we vary between El Nino and La Nina, and the trouble is how do you organize your water to allow for flood times and drought times? The way I had the water set up here, it was just trying to funnel as much water into here as possible. And what happened was when we get a flood time, I get so much water flowing in here that I couldn't stop, that a lot of things died just from having wet feet, because there was just water flowing right across the top of the whole thing. And then 2 years ago, we had what you could call a flash drought, in that in a period of 12 months, we only had a little bit over 200 millimeters of rain. So we only had that much rain in an entire 12-month period. So then that's when I found the main problem with this area here, and that's depth of soil. When you're in an area that's subject to drought, depth of soil is critically important. As you'll see on my wicking bed videos, the depth of soil acts as your storage. So the deeper your soil is, the more storage you've got. And it turns out that the average soil depth through here is only about a meter or so. So it's only about this deep. So when we get a drought time, if there's no rain coming in there and there's no storage in the soil, things just start dying left, right and centre. So my policy of making this an ecosystem is I don't like going around holding every plant's hand to make sure it survives. So they have to be able to fend for themselves, and if they don't do well here, they might do well somewhere else. And so this area has a few trees have done okay here, like there's a jelly palm, a mulberry and a pomegranate. They're doing okay, but most of the other things I planted just turned up their toes, either in the rain or in the drought. So it's still doing this weird weed thing, in that every year you get a different set of weeds. This year we've got cobbler's pegs, which are a bloody nuisance because they stick to you all over the place. And they seem to come up after the drought type situation. When you get a lot of rain after a drought, you get different weeds come up due to that. So this area has largely been left to fend for itself. Some things are doing okay, and but I've shifted my emphasis down to another area where I've got trees growing, and then currently I'm creating a new area down by the river where I've got silt. And it's a different type of soil, and the soil is very deep down there. So that will be the area that becomes the new focus, because I've got deeper soil and it becomes more drought tolerant. So this area, although it was a good idea and I learned a hell of a lot through doing it, there's nothing wrong with having failures. You learn an enormous amount. And through this, I learnt the importance of deep soil. And if you're buying a property, I wasn't aware of that when I bought this property, but you can get a bit of a feel for the depth of soil by looking at the trees. If you've got trees that are this big on the property, then you've probably got fairly deep soil. If your trees are only this big, well, they might not, it depends on when they're planted or how they've come up and all that sort of thing and what varieties they are. But generally smaller trees mean there's less soil depth. So if you're buying a property with big trees on it usually means you've got good soil depth.